all ever really wanted since I was a young girl was a cozy, well-equipped home studio with decent natural light for my sewing machine. It would be my sanctuary, where I engage in my creativity and ponder about whatever I was daydreaming about. My name is Regina. I'm 27 and I design clothes. Not the kind you see on runways, all see-through and held together with tape. I make clothes for real life, things that are comfortable, modest, secure. I'm maybe a little obsessed with making sure a button won't pop at the worst time or a seam won't split. I spend hours reinforcing seams, picking buttons that won't chip, choosing fabrics that aren't see-through when you stand in the sun. I guess I just think people deserve to feel safe in what they're wearing, you know? It's like armor. Not metal armor, but armor you can wear to a coffee shop. Armor that lets you sit and not worry that someone can see up your skirt or down your shirt. Anyway, that's why I moved here, to the Willows. Sounds nice, doesn't it? It's one of those new suburban estates where every lawn is freakishly green and the mailboxes all match. I figured it was the perfect place to get my new line off the ground. Quiet, boring even. I was actually looking forward to boring. Boring meant predictable. Boring meant safe. I just wanted to pour a cup of coffee, lock my door, and work. I had a small business loan and all my savings tied up in this move. This was it, my one shot to build a life where I didn't have to look over my shoulder. I was so optimistic, so ready to finally have a space that was just mine. You're probably thinking that's a weird thing to be excited about, the lock. But my last apartment? God, it was a nightmare. The landlord, this guy named Henderson, he just wouldn't stay out. He had a key, of course, but he thought that meant he owned the place, even with me in it. He'd check on the pipes when I wasn't home. I know because I'd come back and things would be wrong. My sketches would be stacked differently, a chair pushed back under my desk when I always leave it out. It's the little things that make you crazy. I use specific pins, the ones with the yellow plastic heads. I'd find a blue one in my pincushion. I never use blue. I'd come home and the whole apartment just smelled wrong, like his aftershave, a cheap, musky smell just hanging in the air. Once, I'm sure of it, he went through my closet. I knew it. A dress, one of my own designs, was hanging just slightly off the hanger. He had touched my clothes, my work, the things I made to feel safe. It's a feeling I can't even describe. It's not just scary, it's violating. It makes you feel like your skin is dirty. You start to question your own mind. Did I leave that light on? Am I sure I closed that drawer? At the same time, I was getting all this weird, creepy harassment online from guys who had a problem with my modest designs. It felt like I was being watched from every angle, through my laptop camera, through my own peephole. It felt like I was trapped between two walls, the digital one and the physical one. People sending me disgusting messages about what they'd do if they got past my modest clothes, and a guy who could just walk in and touch them whenever he wanted. So this move to the Willows wasn't just a fresh start. It was an escape. I needed to find a place where I could finally feel secure. A place where I was in control, where my walls were my walls. This neighborhood looked perfect, safe, respectable. They even bragged about it when I signed the lease. "We have a very active community watch," the agent said, smiling. "We all look out for each other here." That line, more than the green lawns, was what sold me. It sounded like the exact opposite of Henderson. It sounded like protection. I just didn't realize what that really meant. Or who, exactly, they were all watching. The first week was normal. That's the only word for it. Actually, it was better than normal. It was quiet. I set up my studio in the spare bedroom. I had my 2 sewing machines, my serger, my cutting table. The light in the spare bedroom was perfect, just like I'd hoped. I didn't hear sirens. I didn't hear neighbors screaming. Just birds. I unpacked. I set up my studio in the spare bedroom. I met a few neighbors. One of them, a woman named Sharon, brought over a lemon loaf. She was, I don't know, perfectly suburban. Kind eyes, great manicure. "Welcome to the neighborhood, honey," she said. "We're just so glad to have you." She didn't ask too many questions. She just smiled. It felt nice. Her son, Austin, helped me carry in a heavy bolt of fabric a few days later. He looked about 19 or 20, and he was all smiles. A sweet kid, really. Polite, called me ma'am, which made me feel old, but it was sweet. He helped me wrestle this giant roll of denim up the walkway. "This must be heavy-duty stuff," he said. "It is," I laughed. "It's for a new line of jackets." "Wow, you've got a serious setup in there," he said, glancing into my studio as we angled the box past the doorframe. "Oh yeah, it's my work," I said. "That's cool. I really liked that blue dress you were sketching last night, the one with the high collar." I just stopped. I didn't move. I was holding one end of the box, he was holding the other. The rough cardboard was digging into my fingers. My blood just stopped. It didn't go cold. It just stopped moving. "What?" He laughed, a totally normal, friendly laugh. That was the worst part. "On your desk. I saw it from the window when I was walking the dog. The light was on. It's really good." I forced a smile. "Oh, thanks." I just stared at him. My brain was working fast, trying to find a normal explanation. A reflection? No, my desk isn't near the front window. My studio window faces my backyard, the fenced-in backyard, a 6-foot-tall solid wood fence. To see my desk, you'd have to be inside the fence, or looking from an upstairs window in the house behind mine. But he lived next door. He'd have to be standing right at my fence line, in the dark, peeking through a crack. I think I said something about getting the box inside. He just smiled, said, "No problem, let me know if you need anything else," and he left. I locked the deadbolt, my brand new solid deadbolt, and just leaned against the door. Henderson. The thought just hit me. Henderson. It was that same feeling, that feeling of access, that feeling of my space, not my space. I told myself I was being paranoid. He's just a nosy kid. He was walking the dog. Maybe he found a hole in the fence. But my hands were shaking. I went to the studio window. I looked at the fence. It was solid. No holes, no cracks. That comment from Austin lit up all my old warning bells. It was Henderson all over again. I started my old routines, the ones I thought I'd left behind. A chair propped under the doorknob at night, a piece of tape on my closet door just to see if it moved. I felt stupid and angry. Angry at him for being a creep, and angry at myself for not being able to just relax. I closed my blinds the second the sun started to set. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Then I found the first one. It was a few days later. I was trying to force myself to be normal. Work. Focus on the work. I was in my studio, pinning fabric to my mannequin. It's a dress I was really proud of. A linen shirt dress. High collar, long sleeves, but still light. Secure, but not heavy. I was concentrating, getting the drape of a sleeve just right. I stepped back to check the line of the shoulder, and my eye just caught it. In the corner of the room, up near the ceiling, was the smoke detector. Except it wasn't a normal smoke detector. We all have them, that little white plastic disc. But I'm a designer. My eye for detail is everything. A seam that's off by a millimeter, a button that's the wrong shade of white. The plastic casing on this one, it was just a little too perfect. The seam where it twisted open wasn't quite flush, and the light, the little green on light, was beside the center, not in it. And right in the center, where the test button should be, was a tiny, perfect black circle. A lens. I swear, my blood went cold. I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at it, with pins in my hand. I felt them digging into my palm. It was aimed right at my cutting table, right at my mannequin, right where I stand, where I work, where I live. I thought about Henderson. I thought about the online creeps. But this was worse. This wasn't a landlord with a key. This was built in. This was infrastructure. I backed out of the room, closed the door, and leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the pins all over the floor. I didn't call the police. You'd think I would, right? But my first thought was, they'll think I'm crazy. They'd say it's just a smoke detector. Henderson had told the cops I was unstable when I'd complained about him. The gaslighting runs deep. No, my first instinct was control. I had to be sure. After about an hour, I forced myself to go back into the studio. I got on a step stool, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I looked at the thing. It was definitely a camera. Small, cheap, but 100% a camera. And if there was one, I spent the next 3 hours tearing my house apart. I felt insane. I felt like an animal in a trap. I grabbed a screwdriver. I pulled the vent covers off the walls, shoving my phone in to take pictures. I checked the light fixtures, and I found another one. In my bedroom, tucked into the ceiling fan assembly, just above the blades, aimed right at my bed, aimed right where I get dressed, where I make my modest clothes. The irony, I felt sick. But the most disgusting one was the one I found in the bathroom. It was behind the mirror. The mirror was just a regular medicine cabinet mirror. But when I opened it, I saw a dark square, a hole cut into the drywall behind the cabinet. And inside that hole, another lens. It wasn't a camera in the room, it was a camera in the wall. Someone had to have built it that way. I ran outside. I had to get out. I was choking. I couldn't breathe the air in that house. I stood on my perfect green lawn in the middle of the afternoon, and I looked at the houses around me. Sharon's house to my left, the one Austin lived in, the quiet retired couple's house on my right, the house behind me. My studio faced the house behind me. My bathroom, the wall didn't share with anyone. It was an exterior wall. But Sharon's house, her upstairs bedroom window had a clear, direct line of sight to my bathroom window. No, it wasn't the window. The camera was in the wall. They had to have access. Suddenly, all the friendly waves felt different. The community watch sign at the entrance seemed to pulse. It wasn't one person. It wasn't a landlord or a random creep. The cameras weren't just in my house. They were part of the house. This was coordinated. We all look out for each other here. And as I stood there, Sharon came out her front door. She had her gardening gloves on. She smiled, that same perfect, warm smile. Everything okay, Regina? You look like you've seen a ghost." She knew. She had been watching me find them, waiting for me to come outside. This wasn't a discovery. This was an initiation. This was the next step in their sick game. I just stared at her stupid, perfect lemon loaf smile. "Fine, Sharon," I managed to say. "Just needed some air." I went back inside. I was shaking, but I had control. I had to. I got my step stool and a screwdriver, and I ripped the camera out of the smoke detector. I wasn't gentle. I tore it out of the ceiling. Plastic cracked. I took pictures of the one in the fan. I recorded a video on my phone of the two-way mirror, showing the dark space behind it. Proof. Real, undeniable proof. I drove to the police station. I clutched my phone and the mangled smoke detector like they were a life raft. I must have looked crazy. My hair was a mess. I had drywall dust on my shirt. The officer at the desk, his name tag said Officer Riley, seemed nice enough. He listened, he nodded. He took the smoke detector from me, turning it over in his hands. "Ma'am, this just looks like a new model," he said, his voice calm, patronizing. "There is a lens in it," I said, my phone across the desk. "Look, that's my bedroom, that's my bathroom. Someone cut a hole in my wall." "We see a lot of this," the other officer said, leaning against a file cabinet. He had this little smirk. "Faulty wiring, new smart home tech, causes reflections that can look spooky. And you just moved, right? It's a stressful time." "That's not a reflection." My voice was getting high. "That's a lens." "You live in the Willows, right?" the first officer, Riley, said, handing the broken smoke detector back to me. "That's a good neighborhood, top-rated security. I think we'd know if there was a peeping Tom ring." He said peeping Tom like I was the pervert for suggesting it. It was Henderson. It was the exact same thing. The same, "Are you sure you're not just stressed, honey?" tone. I was being gaslit, but this time it was by a guy with a badge. I realized with a cold, sinking horror that he wasn't going to write a report. He wasn't going to help. He wasn't just gaslighting me. He was protecting them. The community watch. He was part of it. I suddenly felt very cold. I wasn't a citizen reporting a crime. I was a performer who'd gone off script. I grabbed my evidence and left. I went back home, back to the house that was watching me. This was the hardest part. I had to pretend. That was the only way. I had to let them think they'd won, that I was just the crazy girl. I smiled at the neighbors. I brought my mail in, and I went to my studio. I didn't fix the smoke detector. I left the hole. I sat at my machine, sewing a hem, knowing they were watching. The worst part was that night. I had to get ready for bed. I went into my bedroom. I looked right at the ceiling fan, and I took off my clothes, slowly. I could feel their eyes. I could almost hear them. My work, my focus on security and modesty, it was just a funny little challenge for them, wasn't it? The modest girl was the one they wanted to watch the most. They weren't just laughing, they were enjoying it. I got in bed and pretended to sleep. It was the longest night of my life. I planned my escape for 3 days. I smiled at Sharon, I waved at Austin. I told Sharon I was heading to the city for a pop-up fashion event. It was a perfect lie. It made sense for my job. I packed my best designs in garment bags. I packed my laptop. I packed the hard drive with all my evidence. I loaded my car in broad daylight, smiling and waving at anyone who looked. The drive out was torture. Every car in my rearview mirror was one of them. Austin was on his porch, watching me leave. Sharon was gardening, and she waved with her dirty glove. I drove, my hands locked on the wheel, until I hit the main highway. And then, I was out. I was really, truly out. I watched the exit for the Willows disappear. I felt this huge bursting feeling in my chest, relief. I cried, I think. I just sobbed. I couldn't believe it. I was free. I drove for an hour, not looking back. I finally pulled off at a brightly lit rest stop, miles and miles away. My hands were still shaking, but this time from adrenaline, not fear. I got out, stretched, and decided to grab a coffee. I fumbled for my wallet, and my keys fell, sliding under the passenger seat. I sighed, got on my knees, and reached under. My fingers brushed against the car's carpet, and then something else. A small plastic box, held in place with black electrical tape. It wasn't part of the car. It was a tracker. My blood didn't just go cold, it evaporated. I pulled it out. It was small, professional. It had a tiny, blinking green light. It had been on the car the whole time. My escape was an illusion. They let me go. They watched me go. They were watching me right now. I looked up, around the rest stop. The man getting gas? Was he watching me? The woman walking her dog? Was that her evening stroll? The trucker in his cab? Was he? My phone pinged. The sound made me jump so hard I hit my head on the steering wheel. A new text message from an unknown number. "We love the new designs you packed, Regina, and we loved watching you get ready. Drive safe." I just sat there, in the car, under the humming fluorescent lights of a rest stop 100 miles from a place I'll never be able to call home. I think I started to laugh. It was this horrible, dry sound. We love the new designs. My designs, the things I made to feel safe. They were just costumes for their little show. All I ever wanted was a locked door, a little bit of safety. I ran from Henderson only to land in a place where the entire community was Henderson. A place where my very private, modest life was the neighborhood's favorite perverted show. My whole career was built on giving people a sense of security, a way to move through the world without feeling exposed. And here I was, the most exposed person in the world. They didn't just invade my space, they owned it. They owned me. And now they knew I knew. The game was over. Or maybe it was just beginning. What was I supposed to do now? Keep driving? They'd know where I was. Go to the police? They'd definitely know where I was. I looked at the phone. I looked at the tracker on the seat beside me. It was still blinking, green, friendly, active. I looked up, past my own reflection in the windshield, at the little black security camera mounted on the wall of the rest stop, aimed right at my car. It had a little red light. It was watching me. Of course it was. The whole world was the Willows. There was no escape. There was no outside. There were just rooms and the people who watched. I didn't even bother locking the doors. What was the point? They were already inside.
Thank you so much for watching or listening. The things that go bump in the night are hungry for attention. By liking and subscribing, you're telling me you want more. You're helping me bring even more chilling tales and terrifying content to life.